being in like the leadership role is to check your own ego. Everyone is going to come with different perspectives and different experiences. And if you're not at least willing to hear what those are, to figure out how to best position this person for success, then you're not leading. You're just trying to dictate where things are going, and which is not helpful to anyone.
Welcome to Agents of Change, a podcast about the future of B2B marketing, featuring insights from executives at top agencies. I'm Danielle O'Neil with Leadtail. Let's hop on in. Hi, and welcome to Agents of Change. I'm really excited today to be joined by Matt Erickson. He is the Director of Marketing over at National Positions. He has a very vast history in digital marketing, especially data and analytics, but also of leading teams. And so we're really happy to have him on the podcast with us today. Hey, Matt.
Hello, Danielle. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. When we met previously, we talked about multiple different topics, but I think we both landed on just the idea of talent right now and really what this means in agencies and then also within departments. So tell us a little bit about how you got into leading teams and really what led you to where you are now with National Positions.
Sure. Yeah. No, originally my whole foray, my second career, into marketing started with graphic design. That's where I started back in everything from doing graphic design for print and then for web, and then doing channel marketing for companies like PCM. These used to be called PC Mall way back in the day. I don't even know if they're still around anymore. But a lot of trial and error, making a ton of mistakes, because if we don't make mistakes, how the heck are we going to learn? And also having periods in my own life where my ego got really inflated, and then finally getting smacked down enough in good ways to eventually land here at National Positions. So I kind of came here with about, 5 years ago now, with I try to be a little more humble with, there's only so much you can learn. And when I went and got my degrees, there wasn't a digital marketing degree, so it was once, that was, 2011, 2012. So once I, got into the real world, I quickly learned, I don't know what all of this stuff is. So I had to kind of train up and learn on my own. So once I got here, I came here with a much more open mind, because there were SEO experts, there were Google Ads experts, there were social media experts, there were all of these practices that far superseded what I had up here. So I really just kind of learned to sit back and listen. And then as time has gone on, I've learned to kind of speak on their level and to have enough respect for their own departments to know, hey, I can speak enough to be dangerous in this point, but then if I hit a certain level, to go, okay, tell me what let me learn, and just be more of an open book. And it's taken some time. For the first couple of years I think I was really trying to get out of my own way, and I didn't realize that until about year 3, and then I realized, okay, I can learn a lot more and help a lot more by just listening and reacting and finding solutions rather than just trying to point out problems. So now we're here in 2023, and it's going to be an interesting year.
To say the least. Absolutely. Well, and that kind of leads into our discussion for today, is talking about that talent and talking about team leads. Employee engagement is top of mind. And as marketers, we're always trying to help our clients find ways that they can better engage with their employees. But it's also really important for us and our internal teams as well. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time talking about that with you today.
Yeah, please.
While we're on the subject of employee engagement, we know that it begins with talent and bringing in the right team members. In our earlier conversation, you had mentioned something that really resonated with me. Interview for personality and drive, not necessarily skill set. Can you elaborate on what you mean?
Yeah, that's something that it took, early on. I've been part of, luckily, being at the director here, I get to be in interviews with all different, departments. So I'm halfway doing a lot of listening and also kind of learning, but that's where I've been able to kind of interject. But we used to have going back 3-4 years ago, and I think a lot of agencies did this, and even people bringing in marketing people to their own agencies. They're like, okay, let's say it's SEO, okay, what is keyword stuffing? What is this? What is, what's a meta description, what's page, which keyword density. They go through all of those checklist items. And me coming from, I like to think I'm more of a creative type. I wanted to hear the stories, tell me about a time when this happened to you. Tell me when it messed up, But I think at the end of the day, and I hate saying end of the day because we all say end of the day now, but you can't teach passion, you can't teach drive. You can help foster it as much as you can. If you notice it, you can like, oh, cool, maybe I can throw an opportunity at this person to let them kind of flex, what they want to do. But you can't, that's so you can teach skills. Like if someone is learning, they have the bones of what goes into a PPC campaign, or they understand the lingo when it comes to SEO, and they got the basics. But it's easier to be able to pull up a Udemy class or to do an internal training to try to round some of that stuff out. But if they're not going to be interested in learning, if they're not going to want to know more, they're not going to challenge you or ask questions. That's that's a bigger problem, because you want people who come in who are not only going to want to invest in their own skills and want to, make their mark, so to speak. But if they're just coming in trying to run down a checklist of this is what I know, but they're not invested in your process, it's kind of a no-go. It's kind of a no-go. I mean, the soft skills are so huge, especially in marketing. You have to deal with clients, you have to deal with differences of opinion, so communication and learning, and can they challenge you? These are all things that I want to hear in an interview, or I want to hear in the first 3 months of someone coming on board. Um, because those that are willing to learn, they're more apt to accept change. If you have to do that, they're more apt to pivot. And I want to hear people who are going to challenge or tell me about what they have learned rather than just fall back on their accolades. That's one place. Maybe it's a personal thing, but I will shut down early on. Quick story. Early on, we were working with an outside writer, and I was working with a member of our influencer team. And she said, "Hey, can you read this and let me know if it's just it might not giving the right instructions here." So I read what she asked this writer to do, and I read what the writer did. It was not on point at all. And so I kindly wrote back, "Hey, thanks for what you did," to the outside writer. "This is what we were looking for. If you have any questions, let us know." I was very cordial about it. Came back with something again in completely left field, and this poor young lady, I don't want to say her name, but because she's on our team and she doesn't like her name being out there, she was just getting really frustrated and defeated. So I said, well, let's just jump on a call. And the first thing out of this young gentleman's mouth was, okay, well, maybe you don't understand. I have a master's degree in journalism from XYZ. And this was week one. And I just kind of snapped and I went, you know what? I have 5 degrees, but I haven't mentioned that, have I? If you're not doing what we're asking, if you're not what we're looking for, I'm sorry. And it was done. So I would much rather have someone who's yeah, I like writing about X, all these different things, and I learned this, than someone who's just saying, I know best because I have the accolades. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep. No, absolutely. And that's where that fluidity and being able to like work within, learn new things, grow and develop is really key when it comes to talent and team members.
For sure.
And with that, as we kind of talked about, good leadership can help cultivate that and cultivate that growth. And in instances like this, where we're talking about where you're hiring for talent and you're hiring for personality versus the accolades versus where they went to college, where they learned their skills.
Hmm.
So that leads us to the next point. How do we as leaders get out of our own way then and allow our teams to grow and develop and try these new things and really learn maybe areas that they've shown interest in, but they don't have the quote unquote skills that nobody else has given them the opportunity to go and develop.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be more I want to discuss on this, but there's two parts. And I know we'll probably hit up more later, but I'll try to take this point by point. I mean, the first one, being in like the leadership role, is to check your own ego. Is to really, everyone is going to come with different perspectives and different experiences, and if you're not at least willing to hear what those are to figure out how to best position this person for success, then you're not leading. You're just trying to dictate where things are going, and which is not helpful to anyone. But I mean, I think the first part, as far as trying to encourage our team to and ourselves to try new things, is really encouraging, putting it out there that you're expected to be challenged. As let's say in my role, if someone doesn't agree, I want them to say it. I want them to, and also, we need to remember that we gained our perspectives as leaders through trial and error. And the moment you think, we think that we can't be taught, no one's going to know more than us, no one does know more than us, we're just going to start slipping backwards. So we have to check our own ego and be willing to present the opportunities to let our team actually try new things and teach us something. So I mean, that's one part. And I think to that, as far as people need to understand that their perspectives, even if they're not always accepted, I think, you know what I mean? They're not, but they're still respected. It doesn't mean that we're going to take everything at face value and say, yeah, we're going to run with it. But people need to know that, yes, we hear you. We respect the area you're going and the perspective you're coming with. Even if we don't go with it, but, we've heard you. And we can get into that later, as far as how you can make sure that that is actually seen and shown in whatever you do. But, nothing in the company, in the business, exists in a vacuum. And it what's the right word for this? It behooves us to be
I think
open.
you used that correctly. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, to be open to different perspectives, because this context is only going to help in some way improve your own processes. It's kind of like I used to way back. I used to teach dance stuff, and people used to say, "I don't." Well, what if the person I'm dancing with likes this song and I don't like this song? It's like, well, it's your job then. If I was a leader, it's your job to try to hear what they're hearing and react to it. So do the best you can with what you got. So, because then you might find a new appreciation for something you didn't have before. So you can, anything that they give you, if you're working outside of your teams, you can try it on like a sweater. And if it fits and it works, that's fine. Or you can just take it off if it doesn't work, but be willing to be open and actually try some of those things. There was another part. This is a hard one, as far as this goes into giving someone opportunities to actually, move forward. You said that a little bit differently, didn't you? Like giving them, how'd you put
Yeah,
it?
just giving them the opportunity to try new things, learn new skills, kind of expand,
I
grow
mean,
their.
there's that whole honey vinegar thing, but
Yeah.
what I have actually, because this is a huge thing. When I came in here, I had, up to that point in my career, had to do everything myself. At least that's how I felt. That was my perspective. Is okay, if I have to write something, I didn't have a writer. I had to write it, and I was horrible at grammar. So I had to figure out, what tools can I use to do this. I had to design it. It's my idea. That was just kind of built into my brain. So I had to break that part out and throw it away. So like me now, when it comes to giving someone another opportunity here to help them grow, it's, I try to always offer a hand and not a fist. It's like, offer trust and then work with the outcome. If if they nail it, awesome, everyone wins. I learn more about what they can do. Other people in the organization can see something they didn't see before. And if it doesn't work, okay, we try to break down, not just, okay, why did this fail? But we try to break down, like, okay, where was there a mishap? Was it in the process or the instruction or the communications or whatever it's going to be? It's never a personal thing. It's always okay, well, for the good of the organization and the client or whoever it is, we try to figure out which domino fell first.
Yeah. Yep.
Which can help them gain a new perspective and also help us as leaders figure out where we're falling flat. And I think that's kind of always the thing, is if we're going to offer opportunities, we have to be able to take the wins and the losses.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And, with that, a key part of that as a leader is really having that environment that opens it up for them to walk into your office to say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm interested in learning more about this, or I have an interest in this. Is there anything in the organization I can do? So I'm throwing you a curveball here, Matt, but what would you what would you tell leaders to be able to signal better to their employees to have that open door policy, to not be afraid to come and talk to you about their interest and that fear of being siloed into the role in which they were hired for?
I think having more open, direct discussions just randomly, that's something that we've, how should I put it? There are some, that are not as apt to do this in any organization. It's just, whether you want to call that old school or new school or whatever, but they believe people should come in and do their work and they should be excited because they have a job and then they should go and do their own life. I know if you're into something, if you're passionate about something, I'm into marketing, and when I'm off work, I'm thinking about my own content, or I'm jumping on Twitter and how can I add some good discussion points to other people's stuff. So it never really shuts off. So I think actually, contacting people, whether it's going to be through messaging, whether it's on LinkedIn, I see someone in our company had a birthday and I was like, hey, so I had a happy birthday. How are things going? Just opening up little discussions like that you're instigating. That's not the right word, but you're initiating. You're leading through example. You're leading by example. You're not just saying, hey, if there's a problem, come talk to me. Who the heck wants to just, because then you're encouraging everyone to just pull out problems. But I think if you can say, hey, whatever the situation is, like, there's a couple different ways I've approached this. One is saying, hey, if you have a better idea, please let me know. Or if there's a chink in my armor of the way I'm thinking about this, if I'm totally missing something, let me know. Because, and I'll say, like, because I may not, you may know something I don't know, and please be willing to tell me that. So I kind of lay it out there like, hey, this is a partnership. It is not I have no qualms about being wrong, because I'm wrong every day. And there's there used to be, again, back in old teaching days, when I used to teach, and I have a group of like 150 people, and I'd finish teaching something, and I would say, and I'd still do this in our Zoom meetings with everyone. I'll say, does anyone have a question? And of course, it's silent. And I say, okay, well, just so you know, if you have a question you're not asking, there's 10 other people who have the same question and they're afraid to ask. So if you are willing to go ahead and just put it out there, you're not just going to help yourself. You're going to be helping all these other people. So, so bringing it back that it's never a personal thing, and that any insights that an individual has could possibly help the entire organization, or could help their team, or could change if they have, what, this saves me 2 hours a day doing something this way. Really? Well, tell me more about that. Well, what is that? And even if nothing happens with it, letting them know, like, hey, if this works, this could actually save other teams this. So they know that they're being heard and that ideas are on the table. And always closing the loop on communication. So if something doesn't work, doesn't happen, don't just ghost anyone, but letting them know, like, hey, this was great. I like this point. We're not going to revisit that right now, but I do appreciate you coming up. If you have anything else, let me know. And then periodically just following up, like, how's the day going? What's going on? So I think leading through examples, the best way to do that.
Absolutely. And I agree. As I'm sure you have as well, I've worked with both leaders, the kind that you absolutely could not approach about anything. You were scared to death if you got called into their office. It was just waiting for the other shoe to drop of,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know what I've done. And then there's the opposite of that, the culture where it is very much an open door policy. You have that invitation. I feel lucky here at Leadtail. That is very much who we are as an organization.
Mhm.
There's nobody you can't talk to, from the CEO down to every single team member. And
Exactly.
that, I think, is one of the things that helps us be able to retain and keep top talent. And I know that's something you and I have talked about as well, is being able to have that leadership and that organization to keep the talent. So
Mm.
what else would you advise to leaders to help them retain that talent, and especially in times like now, where everybody is either trying to find a job or they're trying to hire, or everybody is just laying off. That retention key or that retention piece is key.
Yeah, for sure. That's something we have, over the years, we've had times of great, retention where it's, 3 years go by and maybe two people have turned over. And then other times where it's like, what happened in July? Like what just happened? And people got poached by other agencies. And so when it comes to this, I do at least like to preface this, which I don't like talking about bringing the money discussion into play because that's always going to be a consideration. There's really no way to gauge. I think that I'll just call them old school. I don't mean that in any derogatory way, but it's that they think, oh, we got to keep people. Well, how much more do they want? It's like, well, maybe that's not the point. Maybe Charles and his wife, they just had a new kid 3 months ago. And maybe time is more important to them, so I think, so I'll get into that in a minute, but I think, the first part is people want to know I think within an organization that there's somewhere to grow, there's somewhere to go, there's somewhere that they can actually look forward to. Okay, in a year or in 2 years, beyond a pay bump. So I know something we do internally is we used to like to do. We would always have a rec, and we would be okay. Let's go on LinkedIn. Let's try to find someone new. Let's find this. We started changing that about 4 years ago, and we're like, okay, let's pivot that to promoting from within. Which seems like a no-brainer but when you're a small organization, sometimes you have so much tied up in one person. It's like, how do you move, you have to backfill this role. But I mean, so publicly within the company, promoting from within and, you know, giving kudos wherever possible if someone does get advanced, so it's like putting out not just, oh, did you hear that Scott moved up to this role? It's like, no, out there like, hey, everyone, we want to welcome Scott into this. He's done some great work on this team. Kudos for that team and what he did on that team. Now he's going to work on this team. So it's kind of bringing everyone into the good feelings. And some people think this is very fuzzy, but it's what matters. People want to know that they're recognized. So, and we've even done this too, where we've done like, because I'm kind of an introvert extrovert. I'll get on and do stuff like this, but I also sometimes just like, don't talk to me. I'll throw on a Loom video, and instead of putting out an email and saying like explaining everything, I'll just turn on the camera and say it all out there. So it's personal, send it out to the entire team. So people not only hear it, but that person I know is going to just feel a little bit extra like, okay, sweet. Like I'm recognized. So, it's, along with all of that is taking the time to over accentuate the wins that we have and not dwell on the losses. Losses are always going to happen. Things are always going to get messed up. But when any discussion gets pounded too hard, people worry more about making mistakes than they do about trying to progress. So just over accentuating the wins and kind of minimizing the losses wherever possible. I mean, that's just one of, I can keep going, but this is that's just one of, many, but this also kind of goes back to, if I'm getting at a granular level, when you asked about, when I said just touching base with people randomly. And I totally stole this from Gary Vee. That was just something he said in one of his posts a long time ago, which is just because being the director of the organization, I may work with the head of PPC and the head of paid social, but a lot of their underlying teams, I don't often have hands-on, work with. So I will once in a while, Phoenix, who was the head of our social media, she's now still working with. She's just kind of heading another company that we've launched, which is really cool. But I was like, hey, you're moving out of that role. Tell me who else is on you. I know about this person and this person, and then I learned about there was a young lady named Edith, who's an intern. So I got on, just messaged Edith. I'm like, hey, Edith, we haven't got to work together much. I don't know if we've met. I'm so and so. Just if you ever need anything, let me know. I hope all's well. And just putting it out there, because sometimes you'll just get great, thanks. And then you never know. Once in a while, you may get someone who's like, I was thinking about this. I don't know if you're the right person. And I'm like, I don't care if I'm the right person. Talk to me. Talk to me. I'll find a solution. So opening those discussions so anyone and everyone hopefully know that if they have an issue, they can bring it up. They're not going to be reprimanded for not, doing something the way they think they're supposed to do it, if that makes sense. So yeah, And I think at the end, it really it lets us as leaders know we're not always going to get along with everyone, but you still have to respect everyone. It's whenever and however possible. There's sometimes just not your cup of tea, but everyone has a flavor we can adapt to.
So that actually brings up our next point, the other side of this.
Oh,
So we know retention is key, but then there's also the time when you've got team members that just don't fit in your team. We've all been there. They're brilliant marketers, perhaps, but they're just not the right fit for the organization, or they're not able to really move where the organization is going. There's a lot of reasons that people may not fit, and sometimes it's really hard as leaders to accept that and take the steps forward, especially in instances where, as we all know, these employees can start to bring toxicity to the rest of the team. It can start to change the dynamics of the teams.
yeah.
So, how do we approach that? And really, how do we not only address it with that employee, but then also the rest of the team itself?
That is never an easy question,
It's the worst part.
which is why we're talking about it. So I do have several points on this, just to let you know.
You always do, Matt.
I always do. The first one is it. I said this several times, but I mean this from like my own perspective. It's check my own ego. Is it just me? I do have just through many years of probably reading too many self-help books and, but also having an interest in psychology and all this other stuff is that if there's something that's not vibing with you personally, in someone's approach, things they say, maybe the way they act, there is probably a piece of that that's you're seeing a reflection of yourself, something that you don't dig about you that you've kind of maybe from your past. So it's kind of taking a hard look and saying, okay, first of all, let's turn it back on myself. Is this just a me thing? Okay. So, starting from there, because again, some people are strong, some people don't. I get that people don't like me all the time. And it's going, okay, maybe I'm just strong coffee for some people or weak tea for other people. So really just kind of taking that first step and saying, is it just me? Now, if it moves on, I read a lot of books on stoicism. So there's that idea of what's really in your control, which is your thoughts and your actions. So I can't control someone else's thoughts and actions, but I can attempt to, lead with a hand, not a fist. So a couple of times this has happened directly. There's been two different outcomes. One was I try to, if I catch something early on, I'm not going to just wait and be like, if it's simple example, is because of just the way I progressed in my business, career. I always consider the entirety of ownership within an organization. In other words, if someone says, like, I will always say, our client, or the organization's client, or the PPC team's campaign, or whatever. Now, if someone starts saying my client or my social media post, it's the I, it's the I before the we. If I start noticing that in a very overt manner, I've actually said like, okay, and a lot of times they're not even in my department, so to speak, but I've had to, which is just, it's nerve wracking to do, but I've pulled a one-on-one conversation and just said, okay, look, I just want to have a chat. You're not in trouble. No one's getting fired. No one's getting in trouble. Okay. But, sometimes I had to lay out like, this is how conversation is going to go really quick. I'm just going to lay this out. I just want you to listen for a second. And I'm not going to sit there and go like, you did this, 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 this. I'll be like, I've just noticed XYZ. I try to be a little kid glove with it because it could be my own perspective. So I go a little bit of XYZ, and I want to get your thoughts on that. On is this just, and I don't put too much. I just rip the Band-Aid off. This is what I'm seeing. Tell me your thoughts on that, because I may get a perspective and go, oh shoot, I was hearing this completely the wrong way, and that is not there. It wasn't the intent. It wasn't whatever. Sometimes that alone can be enough to just put it in their head, like, okay, I just need to watch how I'm saying this, because it could come off in the wrong way. And I've been on the other end. When I first got here, I was the only way I knew how to get attention, I guess, was to be very like, not the loudest person, but the most like the way I'm talking right now with all, with, hey, how's it going? And it was very high energy. And I walked into our designer office downstairs, and there was our proofreader who she's just staring at content, making sure everything's good, a designer and somebody else. And this was second week. I had probably walked in the third time that day. I was like, hey guys, how's it going? Just being very, what I thought was friendly. And the person turned around, and the proofreader, and she was like, you need to not talk in here. And I was like, I was mortified. I was like, I wasn't, because I was the first time as a director. So I'm like, do I reprimand this person? What do I do here? So I kind of was like, okay. So I said, okay. And I walked out. And to all due credit to her, she came up to my office and she did exactly what I'm saying right now. She said, okay, look. And she just kind of laid it out like, we have to be very concentrated. You have to concentrate on what we're doing and this. And I got it. And I was like, you know what? You're totally right. I get it. And from then on, no problem. Like, we had a completely fine working relationship. If I had to go in, I'd lightly knock on the door like, hello, can I come in? So that was me taking it back on myself. Now, this also goes to the other side, which is, if I'm having one of these real conversations, depending on the way it's going, it all needs to be done with that the concern of the whole conversation is for the good of the company, good of the clients, good for the team, good for the people. It's not personal. It is completely directed at what's going to make everyone work better cohesively. And the line for me is when it becomes, now maybe that person can be, even if we get it 50%, if we can say, hey, maybe in 6 months internally, we can figure out, maybe they're better in this role. They're going to thrive over here. Again, it's right person, right seat. Sometimes it's the great person, just not the right seat. So we never want to just cut someone loose because I don't like them. It just doesn't work that way. The line goes is when it becomes abundantly clear that it is, for me at least, that it's pure ego. And it's someone that's going to put their personal needs in front of everyone else that they're dealing with. And their needs, at least in their actions and what they say, their own personal needs or personal, desire to be looked at is going to supersede the team, the clients, the company as a whole, and just a clearly, overtly matter. And they're taking up not only other people's time on things that they should be spending on something else. But if it gets to where I'm going, you know what, this extra 20% of my time, I would be far better used to give kudos to other team members or to help other team members grow than to try to keep this person on track. That's pulling me, all of my efforts away from everybody else. So when it hits that point, that's where it needs to become more of like, okay, now we're going to go to have an HR conversation, and we're going to put you on an improvement plan, and it's your choice. But I try to do everything in my power to keep it from getting to that point, because something as simple as a miscommunication, or like when I came in the wrong way when I first got here, and if I hadn't pivoted, I probably wouldn't be here for the last 5 years.
Well, thank you, Matt. I think that this is incredibly timely and incredibly helpful for all the marketing leaders right now that are out there just trying to embrace their teams and help them grow. So we appreciate your time.
Well, I thank you again for having me on. Anytime. I'd love to come back again.
Always welcome.
Okay. Thanks, Danielle.
Thanks, Matt.